Welcome back to the 25 Days of Christmas. My name is Shane Reinert, and we've got another great Christmas story coming up. Today's story is There a Santa Claus? 6 p.m., December 23rd, 1961. I am writing this en route from New York to Los Angeles by plane. When I get home to Honolulu tomorrow, I must have a Christmas story ready to tell the neighborhood children. They have asked me to title it, Is There a Santa Claus? How can I possibly give an honest answer to skeptical youngsters? I hope we get to Los Angeles on time. Almost everyone aboard has a connection to make. 8:10 p.m. The pilot has just given us bad news. Los Angeles is fogged in. No aircraft can land. We have to detour to Ontario, California, an emergency field not far from Los Angeles. 3:12 a.m., December 24th. With one problem and another, we have just landed in Orlando, 6 hours behind schedule. Everyone is cold, exhausted, hungry, and irritable. All of us have missed our connections. Many will not be able to make it home by Christmas Eve. I am in no mood to make up a story about Santa Claus. 7:15 a.m. I am writing this at the Los Angeles airport. A lot has happened in the last 4 hours. The airfield at Ontario was bedlam. Scores of Los Angeles-bound planes had to land there. The frantic passengers, over 1,000 of them, had hoped to get a word to their families that they would be late, but the telegraph office was closed. And there were endless lines at the telephone booths. No food, no coffee. The employees at the terminal were just as frenzied and fatigued as the passengers. Everything went wrong. Baggage was heaped helter-skelter, regardless of destination. No one seemed to know which buses would go where or at what time. Babies were crying, women were screaming, questions. Men were grumbling and being sarcastic. The mob pushed and jostled like a swarm of frightened ants in an effort to find luggage. It hardly seemed possible that this was the day before Christmas. Suddenly, amid the nervous commotion, I heard a confident, unhurried voice. It stood out like a great church bell, clear, calm, and filled with love. "Now don't you worry, ma'am," the voice said. "We're going to find your luggage and get you to La Jolla in time. Everything's going to be just fine." This was the first kind, constructive statement I had heard in a long time. I turned and saw a man who seemed to have stepped right out of the night before Christmas. He was short and stout, and with a florid, merry face. On his head was some sort of official cap, the kind the sightseers wear. Tumbling out beneath the cascades of white curly hair, he wore hunting boots, as if perhaps he had just arrived after a snowy trip behind a team of reindeer. Pulled snugly over his barrel chest and fat tummy was a red sweatshirt. The man stood next to a homemade pushcart, composed of an enormous packing box resting on 4 bicycle wheels. It contained urns of steaming coffee and piles of miscellaneous cardboard cartons. "Here you go, ma'am," said the unusual man with the cheerful voice. "Have some hot coffee while we look for your luggage." Pushing the cart before him, pausing only long enough to hand coffee to others, or to say a cheerful "Merry Christmas to you, brother," or to promise that he would be back to help, he searched among the sprawling piles of luggage. Finally, he found the woman's possessions. Placing them on the pushcart, he said to her, "You just follow me. We'll put you on the bus to La Jolla." After getting her settled, Kris Kringle, that's what I started calling him, returned to the terminal. I found myself tagging along and helping him with the coffee. I knew that my bus wouldn't leave for about an hour. Kris Kringle cut a swath of light through the dismal field. There was something about him that made everyone smile, dispensing coffee, blowing a child's nose, laughing, singing snatches of Christmas songs. He calmed panicky passengers and sped them along on their way. When a woman fainted, it was Kris Kringle who pushed through the helpless group around her. From one of his cartons, he produced smelling salts and a blanket. When the woman was conscious again, he asked 3 men to carry her to a comfortable setting and told them to use the loudspeaker system to find a doctor. Who is this funny little man who gets things done, I wondered. "What company do you work for?" "Sonny," he said to me, "see that kid over there in the blue coat? She's lost. Give her this candy bar and tell her to stay right where she is. If she wanders around, her mother won't ever find her." I did as ordered and then repeated, "What company do you work for?" "Shucks! I'm not working for anyone. I'm just having fun. Every December I spend my 2 weeks vacation helping travelers. What with this rush season, there are always thousands who need a hand. Hey, look what we have over here." He spotted a tearful young mother with a baby. Winking at me, Kris Kringle perked his cap at his jaunty angle, and he rolled his cart over to them. This woman was sitting in a suitcase, clutching her baby. "Well, well, sister," he said, "that's a mighty pretty baby you have. What's the trouble?" Between sobs, the young woman told him that she hadn't seen her husband for over a year. She was to meet him at a hotel in San Diego. He wouldn't know what had delayed her and would worry, and the baby was hungry. Now from the pushcart, Kris Kringle took a bottle of warmed milk. "Now don't you worry. Everything will be all right," he said. As he guided her towards the bus for Los Angeles, the one I was to leave on, he wrote down her name and the name of the hotel in San Diego. He promised her that he would get a message to her husband. "God bless you," she said, climbing aboard and cradling the now sleeping child in her arms. "I hope you have a Merry Christmas and receive many wonderful presents." "Thank you, sister," he said, tipping his cap. "I've already received the greatest gift of all, and you gave it to me. Ho, ho," he went on, seeing something of interest in the crowd. "There's an old fellow in trouble. Goodbye, sister. I'm going over there to give myself another present." He got off the bus. I got off too. Since the bus wouldn't leave for a few minutes, he turned to me and said, "Say, aren't you taking this old jalopy to Los Angeles?" "Yes." "Okay, you've been a good assistant. Now I want to give you a Christmas present. You sit next to that lady and look after her and the baby. When you get to Los Angeles," he fished a piece of paper out of his pocket, "telephone her husband at this hotel in San Diego. Tell him about his family's delay." He knew what my answer would be because he left without even waiting for a reply. I sat down next to the young mother and took the baby from her. Looking out the window, I saw Kris Kringle in his bulging red sweatshirt disappearing into the crowd. The bus started. I felt good. I began thinking of home and Christmas, and I knew then how I would answer the question of the children in my neighborhood. Is there a Santa Claus? I had met him, William J. Lederer.